Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas. I'm Modi Gambhir. Let's get started. Will the Iran war end just on paper or for real? And where do things go from here onwards? After claiming the signing of a deal was imminent and calling off attacks on Iran, Trump, just a while back, lashed out at Iran again, warning the country to get their act together. But then Iran's foreign minister has said that the deal between the US and Iran is at the closest stage yet and slammed speculation on leaked content of the deal. We are breaking down all of this for you in just a bit. Also on the show for you, we tell you all about how Asim Munir's POK crackdown has backfired majorly. And as poverty rises sharply in Pakistan, we tell you how nearly half of Balochistan is struggling because of the hunger levels. All this and more coming up.
Make a deal.
They're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal.
They want to make a deal?
I think they want to make a deal very bad.
One man's whims have dragged West Asia into a dangerous era of volatility. But then things moved. And the question as of now is the war nearing an end on paper, or will it actually end? In the latest, Iran's foreign minister has said the deal between the US and Iran is at the closest stage yet and slammed speculation on leaked content of the deal. Let's just lay out the context for you and break down for you what all has unfolded. After a tense 24 hours, which saw Trump threatening to hit Iran, quote unquote, very hard, and then calling off the attacks, President Trump said he called off more US strikes on Iran and claimed that a peace deal was in pretty final shape. In fact, according to him earlier, a signing ceremony was also on the cards. And then a lot happened. In fact, Donald Trump has on Thursday even claimed that he ended the war with Iran, he said on a call aired during a campaign rally held in Georgia. And in the latest, like we said, Iran's foreign minister has said that the deal is at the closest stage yet. Just a short while back, just for context, this is what Donald Trump stated on Truth Social. I'm quoting. The terms that Iran leaked out to the fake news have nothing to do with the terms that were agreed on, that were agreed to in writing. What they said, including their weak and pathetic statement on having a deal, bears no relation to the truths. Very dishonorable people to deal with. With them, there is no such thing as dealing in good faith. Amazing. Also, their totally rebuffed drone attack last night against Indian ships leaving the Hormuz Strait is totally unacceptable. They better get their act together and fast, quote unquote. That's what he said. And then Iran, like we said, have said that the deal is at the closest stage yet, dismissing speculation about leaked content of the deal. Here's what else has unfolded. Earlier, India summoned the US chargé d'affaires for the second time this week after another merchant vessel carrying 20 Indian crew members came under attack off the coast of Oman. Trump's comment on the attack of the vessels coming after the US CENTCOM, remember, released separate instances, videos of strikes to, quote, disable these ships, all of which had Indian crew on board. Remember earlier, 3 Indian sailors were killed in a US strike. In fact, on Thursday, the UAE-based company that operates motor tanker reportedly saying that the United States Navy did not give any warning before attacking the vessel off the Oman coast, which resulted in the death of 3 Indians. Now, do you know how many times Trump has claimed that a deal was imminent? Over 30 times. Each time his words fell flat, the confusion mounted. Will things be any different this time around, given where things stand? And then there's also the Israeli leader, who earlier embarrassingly admitted that the Hormuz crisis fallout as a result of the war was not expected. Add this to the fact that Netanyahu has not just been verbally abused by Donald Trump, the apparent rift between the two leaders has become increasingly embarrassing for both the leaders as the world watched on. Given how they started this war against Iran together, but then there were growing signs of tension. At one point, Trump even reportedly telling Netanyahu, quote unquote, everybody hates you now. For now, the Israeli Prime Minister had earlier said that he and the US President were in full agreement to keep Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. That was the day after Trump claimed a deal was imminent. So while questions have remained over the multiple hollow declarations of a deal being imminent and the war goals and where things stand and where they could head from here onwards, the uncertainty continues and the world has been bearing the brunt. No wonder then serious questions have been raised. Comparisons are being drawn with the Vietnam War. Questions are being raised over whether the adversary was underestimated and the fallout miscalculated. The thing is, even though the Vietnam War had a catastrophic human cost, the global economy was not left on edge in such a way. And in terms of consequences and implications, this war could become a bigger geopolitical turning point. The war that the US and Israel started against Iran, the subsequent Hormuz crisis, the fallout, they have become pain points not just for West Asia, but for the entire world. And recovery from the impact already caused could take far longer than what the world can actually afford. In fact, the World Bank on Thursday cut its global growth forecast for 2026 to 2.5% due to the war in West Asia. It also said growth could slow to just 1.3% if the energy supply disruptions prove more severe and come with substantial stress in the financial markets. In fact, its 2026 forecast is down 0.1 percentage point from January, the lowest seen since the COVID-19 pandemic that began in late 2019. The World Bank's stark outlook coming as the war launched by the US and Israeli strikes on Iran on the 28th of February sent energy prices up sharply because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, renewed the inflationary pressures worldwide, and also fueled expectations of tighter monetary policy across many countries. Among the consequences, fertilizer prices also up sharply, raising concerns about a major food supply crisis, perhaps. The verdict is, according to the World Bank, the Iran war is the worst hit to the global economy since COVID-19. The World Bank says the war is slashing global growth prospects and that a prolonged conflict could tip dozens of developing nations into years of stagnation. That's the fallout because of the war. And these are all factors that directly impact you and your lives. Serious questions remain over the strategy, the battle plan, the goals, the end game, what happens here onwards. And as of now, on multiple fronts, questions remain, while there is serious concern that continues to shoot up.
A despicable attack.
Civilians getting killed.
Pakistan-occupied Kashmir remains on the boil. While the Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir's forces try to stifle the voice of the people, the crackdown has backfired. Protesters in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir have affirmed that thousands will sacrifice their lives but will not surrender. And those visuals depicting the story in itself, thousands of supporters of the civil society group Joint Awami Action Committee, JAAC, gathered at Rawalkote's Eidgah ground for a peaceful sit-in. In a clear message to the Munir-led military establishment, they ruled out any compromise and expressed willingness to lay down their lives until their demand for abolishing 12 seats in the so-called Legislative Assembly is met. Subsequently, several innocent people were killed when Pakistan Rangers opened fire in the early hours of the morning. But people of POK remain steadfast in their resolve. They have again gathered in large numbers at the same site. And as per reports, JAAC is ready for negotiations only if its ban is revoked. The dead bodies of the deceased are returned, and the Pakistan paramilitary troops are withdrawn from the urban areas. Since Tuesday, POK has witnessed a shutdown strike. Munir's forces have opened fire and tear gas at JAAC protesters, killing multiple civilians and injuring countless others. Pakistani authorities launched a search operation for 4 JAAC protesters and announced a bounty of over $35,000 in this connection. In fact, the crackdown in POK continues to provoke outrage around the world. And in India, at Srinagar's iconic Lal Chowk, people staged a peaceful demonstration demanding justice for the civilians killed by the Pakistani forces.
The reported civilian killings in Pakistan, that's raising, in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, that's raising a very, very serious concerns. And firstly, it's very disappointing to see such killings, internet shutdown in POK, and civilians getting killed.
Pakistan is facing ire in the UK as well. Britain's Conservative Party MP, Bob Blackman, condemned the killing of civilians by Munir's forces. He also called upon the Pakistan military to leave the illegally occupied Indian territory.
Shouldn't be using live ammunition on peaceful protesters under any circumstances. So, that's why so many people have been killed and so many injured as a result. This is a despicable attack on civilians.
And as Munir continues to face backlash, trouble is brewing in Pakistan's own backyard. A day earlier, traders, transporters, mine owners implemented a shutter-down strike in Balochistan. This came amid growing attacks on vehicles carrying minerals. As a result, all business activities and transport was suspended in Quetta and other parts like Gwadar and Khuzdar. And according to reports, protesters blocked all 4 national highways using heavy boulders, trucks, oil tankers, halting all passenger and supply routes. But the strike ended following successful negotiations with the provincial government. With the situation in POK spiraling out of control and growing calls for justice by the protesters, it remains to be seen whether Munir's forces go back to the negotiating table or continue with their brutal crackdown. Shifting focus now to another story from Pakistan. This time it's about its economy. which has always been caught in that cycle of IMF bailout, currency crises, high inflation, rising debt. Governments have changed, economic packages have come and gone, but for the ordinary people on the ground, nothing seems to change. The promise of relief has remained elusive. Pakistan's official economic survey is out, and the numbers are again deeply concerning. Income falling, poverty rising, food consumption declining. And for the first time in history, households are buying less wheat and less meat. Let's break it down. The first warning sign, household income. Real monthly household income has fallen from 35,454 Pakistani rupees in 2019 to 31,127 rupees in FY 2025. That is a 12% decline in real purchasing power in just 6 years. At the same time, the survey is showing households are buying less wheat and less meat, a signal that families are cutting back on basic food consumption. Income inequality has also worsened, with the gap between rich and poor reaching its highest level in decades. The second warning sign, poverty. Pakistan's poverty rate has risen to 28.9%. 28.9%, up from 21.9% in 2018 to 19. And that means nearly 70 million people are now living below the poverty line. Put another way, almost 3 out of every 10 Pakistanis struggling to meet basic daily needs. The official poverty threshold is just 8,483 Pakistani rupees a month, or around $30 US. Rural areas have been hit the hardest. Poverty in rural Pakistan standing at 36.2%, more than double the 17.4% recorded in urban centers. And the most alarming numbers come from Balochistan. The survey showing poverty in the province has reached 47%. That means nearly 1 in every 2 people in Balochistan is living in poverty. For Balochistan, the challenge is no longer about just development. It's a humanitarian and economic crisis playing out. And by comparison, poverty is standing at 23.3% in Punjab, 32.6% in Sindh, 35.3% in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The figures speaking of massive imbalances within Pakistan's economy. The survey also pointing to a broader quality of life challenge. Pakistan continues to face high levels of air pollution, with major cities regularly recording pollution levels far above international safety guidelines. And while the government is projecting GDP growth of 5.7% and lower inflation in the coming years, the reality on the ground appears far more challenging. Pakistan's economic story may still be wrapped in optimistic forecasts, IMF assumptions perhaps, but the reality has a way of cutting through it all. And it's a bleak one. When poverty is nearly 50% in parts of the country, when households are eating less, when income levels keep shrinking, the recovery narrative starts to sound less like policy and more like propaganda. Shifting focus, the race for the next generation of fighter jets is heating up. As the world's biggest military powers chase invisible aircraft of the future, India is now looking at a powerful new partnership. A French offer could push India from building today's fighters to shaping tomorrow's air warfare. Take a look.
The future battlefield may not be ruled by the loudest fighter jet, by the one enemies cannot see coming. behind closed doors, a new aerospace race is taking shape. The United States, China and Russia are developing sixth-generation fighter aircraft designed to dominate the skies for decades. And now, India could be entering that race. India and France are discussing a possible joint program to build a sixth-generation fighter jet, opening a new chapter in their defense partnership. The talks come after Europe's major future fighter project, led by France, Germany and Spain, faced serious setbacks. The collapse of the Franco-German plan has created an opportunity for New Delhi to step in. Defense-level discussions have already taken place. During Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and his French counterpart Catherine Vautrin's meeting, which took place in Bengaluru in February. The talks could also receive a further boost during Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to France. Paris has also reportedly indicated a willingness to share advanced fighter engine technology with India, a crucial capability that could transform India's aerospace ambitions. India is already acquiring 114 more Rafale jets. The IAF Rafales will be acquired under the Make in India scheme, with French planemaker Dassault partnering with an Indian firm. For the deal, India has laid down non-negotiable clauses, including indigenous weapons and data links. Now, the two nations may be joining hands for the jet of the future. But what exactly is a sixth-generation fighter? These aircraft are expected to go far beyond stealth. They are being designed as flying command centers, combining artificial intelligence, advanced sensors, unmanned drone control, electronic warfare, and next-generation weapons. For India, this comes at a critical moment. India is currently developing its first indigenous fifth-generation stealth fighter, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft or AMCA. The aircraft aims to bring advanced stealth technology and network-based warfare capabilities to the Indian Air Force. Now, the sixth-generation race is already moving ahead. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
Our next story is from the UK. Amid growing concerns over Britain's defense spending and preparedness, a huge illegal arms deal scandal worth tens of millions of dollars allegedly has hit the country. The kingpin of the racket, a 68-year-old businessman who was held guilty by a UK court after a 9-week trial, reportedly. A resident of South London, he controlled the Air Services group of companies, which are basically registered not just in the UK, but other parts as well, like Greece and South Sudan as well, reportedly. And he, along with his Greek business partner, was found guilty of brokering illegal arms deals whereby weapons were supplied to countries like Sudan, Libya, from 2009 to 2016. They were sourced from aging stockpiles of weapons in countries like Ukraine, Serbia, and the Czech Republic. For instance, the accused brokered a deal for a complete air defense missile system acquired from Ukraine for nearly $55 million. What stood out was that none of these deals were actually licensed by the UK authorities, reportedly. To conceal the real destination of the weapons, the accused forged end-user certificates, falsely claiming that the goods were being sent to countries which are not subject to sanctions. Now, which weapons were supplied as part of these deals? This included fighter jets, surface-to-air missile systems, anti-tank missiles, and thousands of assault rifles. And as per the UK's Crown Prosecution Service, countries banned from buying weapons in the open market were usually their customers. and thus were willing to pay vastly inflated prices. And the prosecutors, meanwhile, termed these convictions as a clear warning that people who breach UK's arms trafficking laws will face justice. While Greenhalgh was arrested in 2024 after a 7-year-long probe, his Greek accomplice reportedly remains at large as he fled the UK, allegedly, after being granted bail. Both accused will be sentenced on the 22nd of July. And the conviction in the case coming just days after a secret government report revealed how a portion of the UK's aid money allegedly fell into wrong hands when the Tories were in power. As per the Telegraph, nearly $38 billion of taxpayers' money meant as aid payment and COVID relief loans were allegedly routed to ISIS terrorists in Syria, criminal gangs involved in human trafficking, and firms linked to the Russian government allegedly and the Chinese military from 2015 to 2021 allegedly. And before we go on any further, a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Is Keir Starmer going, nearly gone? The crisis for the UK leader continues to intensify. We tell you all that you need to know. A special report on a living underground network, which scientists say is stretched into space, could span nearly 10% of the Milky Way. All this and lots more coming up. Elon Musk's SpaceX made its Wall Street debut today as a publicly traded company. And this follows the largest IPO in history, a blockbuster offering that raised over $75 billion reportedly. The listing is expected to make Musk the world's first trillionaire and could trigger a wave of major AI company IPOs in the months ahead. In fact, these are the latest visuals from NASDAQ as the company rang the opening bell. Just for some perspective here, co-founded by Musk in the year 2002, the rocket startup has grown into a major satellite operator. It has also merged, remember, with Musk's artificial intelligence company, which includes the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter. Musk says SpaceX wants to be able to take you to the moon, take you to Mars, and ultimately beyond. Listen to this.
We want to be able to take anyone who wants to go to the moon, anyone who wants to go to Mars, or anywhere in the solar system, and maybe beyond the solar system at some point. We want to be able to take you there. Not just a few astronauts. I mean you, literally you. If you watch, whoever you are watching this, SpaceX wants to be able to take you to the moon, take you to Mars, and ultimately beyond.
SpaceX sold 556 million shares at an initial price of $135 per share. The company confirmed, making it the biggest IPO in history. The offering is expected to raise more than $75 billion. More than $75 billion, easily surpassing the previous record held by Saudi Aramco, for example, which raised $29.4 billion during its 2019 market debut. And SpaceX is also the first major AI-linked company to enter public markets, as other AI giants, including OpenAI and Anthropic, have recently filed initial documents with regulators. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China, the state has played a major role when it comes to regulating women's reproductive lives. Policies have shifted dramatically over time, from efforts to limit births under the one-child policy to more recent attempts, reportedly, to encourage women to have children as the country faces a declining birth rate. A Guardian report giving a closer look at how many Chinese women are increasingly asserting control over their own reproductive choices despite government pressure. The report talks about how women have described a generation that feels less obligated to marry or have children than previous generations did. At the heart of this is, of course, the legacy of the one-child policy, China's near-universal mandate of just one child per couple. From 1980 through 2015 prompted local officials to compel women to undergo abortions and sterilizations. Beijing launched the one-child policy as leaders worried, basically, about population growth, potentially spiraling out of control. But China's population, long the world's highest, later slowed and last year tumbled for the third year in a row. Even in December 2025, for example, the sentiment towards the one-child policy was palpable after the death of a former head of China's one-child policy. Castigation of the abandoned policy reportedly surfaced on social media. One post reportedly said, quote unquote, if the one-child policy had been implemented for 10 years less, China's population would not have plummeted like this. According to that Guardian report, that's what a post reportedly had said. For example, in rural China, large families were once seen as a goal for couples looking to basically ensure that they would be taken care of in their old age, for example. Sons who could carry on the family name were also favored, reportedly, leading to unwanted infant girls and even aborted female fetuses. The Guardian report also outlining experiences in Shen County, Shandong province, where some women recall severe enforcement measures during the early 1990s. One woman reportedly described being forced to undergo sterilization after giving birth during a campaign known locally as the Childless 100 Days, a period during which the authorities reportedly sought to prevent births, and another woman reportedly recounted being compelled to undergo a late-stage induced labor. The report noting that the accounts are broadly consistent with other available reports from that era, though they cannot be independently verified. According to the report, local residents still remember the campaign. The human rights advocates have described reportedly it as one of the most extreme examples of one-child policy enforcement. A former family planning official later expressed regret, reportedly, over the sacrifices imposed on women during those decades. China, interestingly, now faces a somewhat opposite demographic challenge. The country's birth rate has fallen to historically low levels, prompting authorities to introduce incentives like subsidies, tax benefits for families. However, many younger people cite the high cost of raising children, economic pressures, the changing social expectations as reasons for delaying parenthood or choosing not to have children at all. And researchers, according to the report, suggest that decades of restrictive family planning policies reshaped ideas about the ideal family size. Studies indicate growing numbers of young adults, especially women, say they do not want children. So while the Chinese government is now encouraging births, many women are making reproductive decisions based on their own priorities, finances, life goals. And the long-term effects of earlier population control policies continue to shape family attitudes, even as the official policy has changed. Amid growing calls for a leadership change within the Labour Party, the UK Prime Minister has found himself in the middle of a fresh storm. Yet another one. It puts his premiership at an unprecedented risk, by the way. But the Labour leader remains defiant in his position and says he has not lost authority in his role. Listen in.
incredible prevailing winds in the 2 years we've been in government in terms of the international volatility and the impact on our economy. Notwithstanding that, we've had 2 very significant increases in defence spend, and we've just rehearsed that. Secondly, we've stabilised the economy. And I would just gently say this, that whoever is Prime Minister is going to face the same prevailing winds as I am facing. None of that is going to change.
And the comments, by the way, come shortly after several leaders have quit their portfolios. Both defence and armed forces ministers have quit over differences on military spending, piling pressure on Starmer to step down. The defence secretary resigned, remember, after he alleged that Starmer's defence investment plan risked making Britain less safe. His 2 parliamentary aides also resigned in protest, and hours later, the armed forces minister resigned after accusing Starmer of failing to adequately support military personnel and invest in defence. The string of resignations weakened Starmer's authority at a rather precarious point. The Makerfield by-election is just a week away, which is likely to see the return of Andy Burnham to Parliament. Burnham, who is currently the mayor of Greater Manchester, is seen as the strongest candidate to replace Starmer. So it's extremely significant. And amid the volley of criticism, Starmer has named the Security Minister, Dan Jarvis, as Healey's replacement. Starmer also replied to Healey in a letter, saying that his government has delivered the largest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War and is committed to keeping Britain secure. The Labour Party stormed to power in 2024, remember, winning a landslide election centred on fixing Britain's economy and illegal immigration. But since then, a host of issues, including rising costs of living, controversial tax increases, and anger over illegal immigration, have fueled calls within the Labour Party to replace Starmer. The Labour leader has so far resisted pressure to step down. But with the exit of 2 top ministers, it remains to be seen if and for how long Starmer can actually continue to stay in power. The money raised in American politics reaching new heights. According to ad tracking firm Ad Impact, the 2026 U.S. midterm elections are now projected to attract a record $11.6 billion in political advertising. Let's just break this down. The figure is higher than the $11.2 billion spent during the 2024 presidential election cycle. It is 30% above the $8.9 billion spent in the 2022 midterm elections. The projection has also risen sharply in just a few months. Ad Impact had estimated total spending at $10.8 billion in last year, and it has now added another $800 million to its forecast as the battle for the Congress is only heating up. Now, as of June 1st, political advertisers have already spent $4 billion through. That is a 46% increase compared with the same stage of the 2024 presidential election cycle. And the Senate is expected to account for the largest share of this spending surge. Nearly $3.4 billion projected to be spent on the Senate contests alone. The biggest battlegrounds, Texas, Ohio, Maine. In Texas, projected advertising spending has jumped by $288 million to $850 million. And this makes it the most expensive race in the country. Ohio is close behind, with total spending expected to reach $749 million. Ohio is up by $309 million from the earlier estimates, $309 million. In Maine, political advertising outlays are now forecast at $491 million. It is an increase of $185 million. Campaigns are also shifting more money online, digital political advertising across platforms, expected to reach $1.6 billion this election cycle. And with the Republicans defending a 53 to 45 Senate edge and narrow control of the House, both parties basically are pouring record sums into a handful of competitive states. And this makes the 2026 midterms the most expensive political advertising battle in US history. And with control of the Congress hanging in the balance, the 2026 midterms are shaping up to be consequential and expensive political advertising, the battle, most expensive political advertising battle ever recorded.
The Education Minister, because he decided
Let me just start off with a question now. Where exactly is the India bloc heading, or is it heading nowhere really? The group of 23 constituents of the opposition bloc in India came together recently on the 8th of June, remember? The meeting was held to basically brainstorm the future strategy of the bloc and to stop the Prime Minister and the BJP-led NDA's charge forward. But instead of projecting unity, the meeting has once again exposed the fault lines within the alliance. Two key allies, the DMK and the Aam Aadmi Party, remember, stayed away from the gathering. In fact, the DMK has distanced itself from the bloc and refuses to sit alongside the Congress inside the parliament. The Dravidian Party believes the Congress betrayed them by siding with the TVK in Tamil Nadu. The bloc's parliamentary numbers, by the way, painting a rather interesting picture. At its peak, the bloc had 229 members in the Lok Sabha. But with the DMK's exit from the alliance, it loses 22 MPs, bringing its effective strength down to 207. The impact is also visible in the Rajya Sabha. From an initial tally of 74 members, the loss of the DMK's 8 members reduces the alliance's strength to just 66. That's the breakdown. Now, these numbers are also shrinking further because of the ongoing revolt within the TMC. After accounting for the DMK, the bloc's Lok Sabha strength standing at 207, but with as many as 19 TMC MPs now in revolt, the effective number falling to 188 in a house of 543 members. It's the same in the Rajya Sabha. After the DMK adjustment, the alliance has 66 members, with 3 TMC members resigning, that number dropping to 63 in a house of 245. Now, across several states, the alliance continues to struggle with a question it has never fully answered. Who leads? Who contests? And who makes way for whom? And now, losing its parliamentary numbers as well. This comes just weeks after the NDA, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, remember, continues to expand its footprint with the recent victories in the key state elections. The latest bloc meeting was the first since the 2024 elections. It is their first conclave in 2 years, and this raises serious questions in itself about how seriously the bloc takes its own agenda. The alliance was formed in 2023 with just one aim: to take on the BJP at the national level and stop its surge ahead. But in all this while, it has managed to hold just 5 full-scale meetings. However, they met several times on the sidelines of parliament sessions. But this also paints a grim picture. Imagine an opposition force went through an entire general election, its aftermath, multiple state elections, several political crises, without regular collective huddles as such. And even this meeting failed to bring everyone to the table. The bloc's election numbers are also shrinking alongside its parliamentary figures and unity. In 2023, it suffered major setbacks in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh. Delhi was yet another blow. And in 2026, the list of electoral disappointments grew even longer, with defeats in West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Assam. For an alliance created to challenge the BJP nationally, The electoral scorecard has only intensified questions and concern about its future direction, really, its leadership structure, its ability to remain united even going into the next round of political battles, which also brings me back to the question we started off with. Where exactly is this bloc heading, or is it heading nowhere? An Israeli rights group has published footage to refute claims by the Israeli army regarding an incident in which a soldier allegedly killed a 7-month-old Palestinian infant. The Israeli military had earlier claimed that its forces had fired after soldiers perceived a vehicle accelerating toward them, quote unquote. 7-month-old infant dying, his parents sustaining injuries on the 5th of June. When the Israeli forces opened fire on the family's car in the occupied West Bank. Shortly after the shooting, Israeli military said it was opening an investigation into the incident. It later added that an initial inquiry found that the Palestinian couple and their baby were uninvolved civilians. The footage released by an Israeli NGO showed that the family's car slowed down and came to a halt as it approached 2 Israeli soldiers, reportedly. The video does not show the troops opening fire, but it reportedly shows the Palestinian family outside their car after the shooting, with the baby bleeding in the father's arms. In fact, the NGO has further accused soldiers of failing to provide help to the injured, saying that after the shooting, the 2 soldiers involved in shooting left the scene without checking the vehicle, allegedly, without providing aid to the critically injured infant and his mother, allegedly. The Israeli army has said that it is checking the footage published by the NGO. On the other hand, the baby's father has rejected the IDF statement, which suggested that the shooting was a mistake, reportedly. He asserted that more than 1 bullet was fired without a warning shot, allegedly. Israel occupied the West Bank since 1967. Violence has sharply escalated in the Palestinian territory since the Gaza war started in 2023. In fact, according to figures from the Palestinian Health Ministry, Israeli troops or settlers have killed at least 1,080 Palestinians since October 7, 2023. Beneath just about every step that we take, beneath cities, forests, farmland, something enormous has been growing in silence. It's not a hidden civilization. It's not an ancient river, but a living underground network. So massive, scientists say if the underground networks are stretched into space, they could span nearly 10% of the Milky Way. Take a look.
Beneath the quiet floors of our global forests, a silent engine drives the planet. For centuries, humans looked to the skies to measure the scale of existence, completely oblivious to the monstrous infrastructure thriving beneath the soil. This is not just dirt and roots. It is a complex, hyper-connected biological superhighway operating in total darkness. Underground fungal networks are an invaluable ally in tackling the climate crisis. Now, mushrooms are just the surface fruits and a small fraction of the vast networks embedded in soil and interwoven with tree roots. Beneath the surface of our planet lies an invisible web of microscopic fungal threads. so fine they escape notice, so enormous they challenge imagination. And now researchers have mapped it. The findings reveal that Earth's underground fungal network extends an estimated 110 quadrillion kilometers, long enough to stretch through a staggering portion of our galaxy if laid out in a straight line. Tiny underground partners linked to the roots of around 70% of the world's land plants. Their job is simple: trade and survive. The fungi deliver water, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Plants pay back with carbon-rich sugars. Soil is Earth's second largest carbon sink after the oceans. These underground fungal systems help move and store enormous amounts of carbon pulled from the atmosphere, quietly influencing the climate while sustaining life above ground.
Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph of Islam and a close aide of Prophet Muhammad, is revered by Muslims around the world. And in a key archaeological discovery, Saudi Arabia found a rock inscription bearing his name in Medina. As per Saudi Arabia's Heritage Commission, this discovery marked a significant addition to the country's record of early Islamic heritage as part of a wide-scale survey mission. It found rock carvings with the name of Caliph Omar alongside verses of Arabic poetry from centuries ago. He is widely regarded as a just ruler whose tenure saw considerable military success. On the whole, Saudi Arabia uncovered 173 new archaeological sites. The discoveries also included 4 wells, 3 palaces and buildings, 461 Islamic inscriptions, and over 1,250 rock art panels. This once again bringing into focus the diversity of Saudi Arabia's historic heritage. Four countries will be making their debut at the 2026 World Cup. 2 of them, Curacao and Cape Verde. Curacao is the smallest nation to ever qualify for the World Cup, while Cape Verde has a population of about 500,000. The likes of India and China are not at the World Cup, remember, which proves that when it comes to football, the population does not really count for much. Let's just start off with Curacao, the smallest nation to ever qualify for the World Cup. It's located in the Caribbean and it's just north of the Venezuelan coast. Curacao is not a full-fledged independent nation, but is considered a country within the Netherlands, a status it acquired in 2010. And that's when Curacao was recognized by FIFA. The island, a population of just over 150,000 people there, and a landmass of just 444 square kilometers. In fact, next up, let's talk about the archipelago located off the coast of West Africa with a population of approximately 530,000. The country gained independence from Portugal in 1975 and the official language there is Portuguese. The country only gained recognition from FIFA in 1986 and only started regular international football in the 1990s. Droves of people have migrated abroad, and one of the key reasons for their recent success is the talent identification of the migrants from communities in Europe. Now, that talent identification as such does not happen at the same level at these countries. When you compare the size of the likes of Curacao to the population of the biggest countries, not at the 2026 FIFA World Cup, it is quite staggering. Look at those numbers. In fact, India, China, Indonesia, Pakistan, the 4 biggest countries not playing at the World Cup, If you combine the population of the four countries, it is over 3.4 billion people. That's about 40% roughly of the world's population. Remember, while these countries might not be at the World Cup, football fever in these countries, of course, remains high. India is keenly watching the World Cup on Z5. Football fans are transforming neighborhoods into World Cup-themed spectacles, decorating the streets with vibrant murals, massive cutouts of football stars for FIFA World Cup. And just a reminder to our viewers in India that the 2026 FIFA World Cup will be live on the digital streaming app Z5. Co-host Canada will be kicking off their campaign with the clash against Bosnia in Toronto. Tune in and catch all the action live. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. This is me, Molly Kampi, signing off. Thanks for watching.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
This 79-year cover-up of the truth.
As Disclosure Day hits the big screen, we decode Steven Spielberg's signature filmmaking tropes.
एक खास बात कहनी थी.
Celebrate 25 years of Amir Khan's Lagan.
Oh my God.
And meet the team of Brown. All this and much more with me, Rhythm Sharma, on WION E-Club at these times.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is One.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.